Recording in progress.
Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai haere mai ki te runanga o te kaunihira o ngā roto na Rotorua. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Council Chamber for this very important extraordinary Council meeting. We have a number of people that are attending online, and that is why we have the TV just a little bit closer, just to make it a little bit easier for us to see who's online. So for those that are at the back of the room, we have Sam Fellows, who is our GM, who's been dealing with the preparation of the paper. We have our Mayor, Tania Tapsell. We've got Sarah from MCERT, Councillor Timera Benfeld, Councillor Greg Brown and Councillor Fisher Wang. Welcome to the media and also to the members of the public that have attended this afternoon. Meeting is being live streamed, so similar rules to a council meeting. If you could please ensure that your mobile phones are turned off. And I'd like to invite Councillor Barker if she could open the meeting with a karakia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let us pray. Tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai waho, tūtawa mai roto. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, haumie, huie, tae ki e.
Tēnā koe. Councillor Barker for the karakia. I don't appear to have any apologies from anyone this afternoon. No declarations of interest. As noted, this is an extraordinary council meeting, so the papers were only uploaded early this morning. So we have the papers that have actually just been provided in hard copy to the councillors. The proposal is different from that of the meeting that was held last week, given to a change in circumstances recently. So at this stage, I just need a mover and a seconder that the updated Head Start proposal submission be dealt with at this meeting. Thank you, Councillor Barker, and thank you, Councillor Sanford. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, thank you. That is carried. Now going to move on to staff reports, which is the Head Start proposal submission. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder that the Head Start proposal submission be received? Thank you, Councillor Lee, and seconded by Councillor Barker. All those in favour to receive the report say aye. Against, thank you. That is carried. And I'd now like to invite Sam Fellows to overview the report. Welcome, Sam. Oh, and also, sorry, our CE, Andrew.
Yeah, kia ora. Thanks, everyone. So, yeah, a bit has changed since the previous report, and so the idea for this meeting originally was that it was just, or not just, it was a confirmation of whether we would proceed or not with the draft that was discussed in the workshop on Wednesday. So before you do have the draft, well, the updated draft, given the feedback that we received on Wednesday from all of you, and I think as you'll hear, I'll pass to the Chief Executive in a second, who's created a PowerPoint. As you'll hear, things have changed a little bit, but essentially the key parts of that proposal remain the same, but the recommendations have also changed. But I'll allow him to talk to that, and then happy to jump in with anything else or any further questions you have. And yeah, my apologies for not being here in person, so I'll pass to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much, councillors, and thank you for sharing your Friday afternoon with us all. I will briefly overview this report and then talk you through a number of slides which will further reinforce some of the technical aspects that we'll be dealing with in this report. Technical aspects of the Head Start policy. I would invite at some stage as well questions to be directed to Sarah Palashik, Partnership Director from the Ministry for Cities, Environment, Regions and Transport. I can say that now, MCERT, to be able to again answer any specific questions you might have around Head Start policy or backstop policy, being as they are government policies rather than ones of this council. So, councillors, as you may well recall, on the 29th of July, Council received a substantive report from staff on our options for engaging with the Head Start proposal. On the basis of that the information in that report, Council approved this staff to go away and prepare a Head Start proposal that was drafted and shared with councillors and then discussed at a workshop day before yesterday on the 5th. And the reason we had scheduled this meeting was to approve that draft. However, circumstances have changed from the circumstances envisaged when that report was written, and I'll briefly overview what those are, and those will serve as a framing for the questions that are now before Council. So firstly, to be clear, throughout this process, both on the 29th of July and as a result of this meeting, what's envisaged are 3 unitary councils created within the Bay of Plenty: an Eastern Bay of Plenty Council consisting of Kawerau, Whakatane and Opotiki District Councils, a Western Unitary Authority consisting of Western Bay of Plenty District Council and Tauranga City Council, and then a Central Bay of Plenty Unitary Authority consisting of the Rotorua District. Since that report, the Eastern Bay of Councils by council resolution have adopted their Head Start proposal. They have all passed by resolution the same document, and they have submitted that document as a proposal to the Ministry of Cities, Environment, Regions and Transport. I received confirmation of that from the relevant chief executives yesterday. Yesterday also the Western Bay of Plenty District Council and Tauranga City Council considered the matter of their amalgamation into the Western Bay Unitary Authority, and as is a matter of public record, whilst Tauranga City Council approved that amalgamation and Western Bay of Plenty Head Start proposal, Western Bay of Plenty Council did not. So that materially changes, in some respects, the matter before us today, because in order to now give effect to your decisions on the 29th of July, there is only one possibility for this council to submit a Head Start proposal as resolved by council. And that possibility involves the Rotorua Lakes Council working together with Tauranga City Council to jointly submit a Head Start proposal that would cover 3 existing territorial authorities: Rotorua Lakes Council, Western Bay District Council and Tauranga City Council. Now, to be clear, that would create the same 3 unitary authorities that are described in your 29th of July council report. It is simply a different pathway through to creating that outcome because of the decisions of other councils. I'm going to take this opportunity to start moving to the PowerPoint presentation to illustrate exactly the technicalities that lead us to this point. So, now I have the control.
Madam Chair, can I just ask our CEO, because I heard Sam say there's been a bit of change, a slight change. I think that's somewhat disingenuous because I think it's been quite aren't we talking about a significant change?
Councillor, in the paper we've indicated it's a substantive change.
Thank you. That's just it's not just a slight change. That's what I want to make us aware of.
Thank you, Councillor Kawatate. I think that once the CE just goes through the presentation, you'll be able to see that there are quite substantial changes. So over to you.
Okay. Councillors, so again, please bear with me until we get through to the end of the slides because they potentially most make sense when they're viewed in entirety. So let me step through them and then we will, I'll open for questions through the chair. So if I can, let's not think about the time before Head Start really started. Most of us can't remember it, but one of the original ideas was potentially, when Head Start was first announced, for, again, 3 unitary authorities to be created through one proposal. At early stages, it was unclear who would be part of each of those unitary authorities. In the Eastern Bay of Plenty Typically, it had been those three councils discussed. In the Central Bay of Plenty, there were potentially other partners with Taupo considered, and in the Western Bay of Plenty, as again had been publicly discussed, the possibility of another council joining the Western Bay. We understood through policy this would be an eligible proposal under the government's Head Start policy. Another idea which would have also been eligible was three proposals coming from the Bay of Plenty, effectively delivering the same thing, but in three different proposals. If I go forward to, by the time we brought you the substantive decision on the 29th of July, again, there were two potential ways forward which were discussed. One was a single proposal covering the entire Bay of Plenty, which would have resulted in three separate unitary authorities with the constituent councils indicated there on the slides. Our understanding that this would be eligible under the Head Start pathway, as it was a single proposal resulting in many of the policy objectives outlined in the Head Start policy. The other idea would be to submit three separate proposals across one from each of the unitary authorities, two of which would be eligible and one would not be eligible because it did not contain two willingly participating territorial authorities. This was a topic of some discussion at that meeting, and the reason for Council indicating that the preference was idea number one, which was on the previous slide. If we get to today, we now are faced with a situation where the Eastern Bay of Plenty Unitary Authority councils have all submitted their Head Start proposals. They cannot now participate, and I might direct if you've got questions to Sarah Palashik to answer about this, but my understanding is that they cannot now participate in yet another submission. That leaves the Western Unitary Authority as not eligible because it does not have two participating councils, and it leaves the Central Bay of Plenty Unitary Authority, Rotorua, as not eligible because it doesn't contain two councils, two supporting councils. However, there is a way to generate an eligible Head Start proposal from this situation, and that is outlined on the slide ahead of you, is for Tauranga City Council and Rotorua Lakes Council to work together and develop an eligible Head Start proposal to the Ministry for Cities, Environment, Regions and Transport. Again, to be clear, as you can see, that proposal would still contain the two unitary authorities of the Western and the Central, as we have always discussed and documented through the 29th of July paper. As you can see, the last part of this picture is that the Eastern Bay of Plenty have already submitted their Head Start proposal, and that has been received by the Ministry. Councillors, I might pause here, Madam Chair, and see if there are any questions. I have a couple more slides that relate more to the backstop, but maybe I'll pause here to see if there are any technical questions on Head Start, and also open if there are any questions for Sarah Palashik.
Thank you, C. I wondered if, Sarah, maybe you could just answer that question that the CE just posed around, given that the Eastern Bay of Plenty Unitary Authority have submitted their Head Start proposal, whether they can actually support another proposal or not?
Thank you. Each council can only submit one proposal. So given that they've submitted a proposal, they technically they could probably rescind their proposal, but they couldn't submit another one without doing that. So they've submitted, we've received it, they cannot be part of another proposal.
Thank you for clarifying that, Sarah. So I'm going to take questions, councillors, for Sarah now, around eligible or not eligible.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, for Tauranga to proceed, they need us, and for us to proceed, we need them. Am I clear on that one?
Yes, you're correct.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Thank you for your time today, Sarah. My question relates to the backstop process. I understand that the legislation around that has not been formalised and there is nothing in clear writing. What I'm hoping is that you might be able to give us some direction that should we choose to opt for that, would we then be able to negotiate directly with central government on a path that may achieve their stated outcomes, but giving us more time to do so? Would that door still be open to negotiate a path, a resolution, or result, I guess you could say, that would meet all of their criteria, just not immediately?
It's a good question, and you're correct to say that there is no, the decisions on backstop are yet to be made, so all I can do is look to the Cabinet paper and potentially the Minister's comments, Ministers plural, comments on this. So the Ministers have been really clear that Head Start is local government led and backstop is central government led. And that I always describe backstop as having two kind of elements to it. So the first element is how are your regional council services going to be governed between 28 and 31? And again, we don't know the answer to that, although there are, again, looking at the all of the information that we've got, the best guesses are some kind of CTB commissioners or a combination. So in that time period between 28 and 31, those arrangements will be in place. And the original intention was that those people would then determine those governors would then determine what the backstop arrangements look like. So all I can say is there's no guarantees of what backstop will look like, but it is unlikely to be as local government led as the Head Start processes, and that's been a strong indication from ministers.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, and I might just jump in here as well. Only a few days ago I also met with Minister Simon Watts and explained the situation. We weren't sure at that stage, but we had an inkling that Western Bay may not support moving in because, and the sentiment for anyone who watched that and also confirmed by my discussion with Mayor James, the sentiment on Western Bay not going in was largely around them feeling they did not have enough time. And so I think within my discussions with the Minister as well, he was very clear that if you're not in Head Start, if you're not in this process now, then the opportunity is gone. I did also, just for those who wanted to know, ask whether it was possible, in particular considering Taupo, if we could get more time just to be able to confirm some of the details and address some of the concerns that we had. The Minister was clear that Head Start is now, and if we wish to, we could maybe have a few weeks if two councils wrote to him and asked. But also just want to confirm what Sarah said is the backstop is government-led at the moment. What we have seen from media is comments from ministers and many in government right now that their preference is actually regional as well, hence the concern and the risk. So the only certainty is Head Start at least gives us an opportunity, knowing that there'll be detailed design later to finalise details. Head Start is the only opportunity for us to make our decision on what the future functions and form will be.
I'm still in questions, so I'm going to go to Councillor Temera Benfell online.
Kia ora, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I suppose my question is, given in the context of Western Bay Council have obviously made their decision clear through their elected members, which I think deserves to be respected. What I wanted to, I suppose, understand is that if Rotorua and Tauranga proposed a joint proposal of establishing an independent Rotorua Unitary Authority and an independent Tauranga City Unitary Authority, would that be an eligible proposal under the current framework, and then we just Western Bay is left to do the backstop as their elected members have opted to do? Is that an eligible proposal?
Okay,
It's
Councillor.
not an eligible proposal because while you've got two willing partners, it must also result in a reduction in the number of councils. So in that situation, you've got two willing councils, but you end up with two councils. So there's no reduction. Whereas if you had Western Bay, you've got three councils, two willing councils, one not so willing, but it results in 2, so you go from 3 to 2.
Councillor, can I just be clear? What you've described is not what is being proposed. So what is being proposed is that Tauranga and Tauranga City Council, as per their resolutions, and Rotorua Council, based on your decision, would collaborate to jointly make a submission, but the submission would cover the Western Bay of Plenty district as well, and would include them within as an amalgamation with Tauranga City Council. So to be clear, it would involve those 3 councils, but it would not include them in the as proposers.
Yeah, thank you. No, I am aware of what's being proposed. I suppose the question was posed in the context of, as best as we can, not taking unwilling partners into the situation. Obviously, if it comes down to understanding what's the best for our district, I think that should take precedence of understanding how can we ensure that our residents and our citizens here in Rotorua we're acting in their best interests in the scheme of the entire region, because that's first and foremost should be our consideration. So yeah, fully understand what is being proposed, but I was trying to see if there's an alternative to just leave them to do as they want to do, but that's been made clear. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, a reminder, we're just still in questions at this stage, so we've got a number of questions. I'm going to go Councillor Sanford, Lee, Patterson, and then Barker. So Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Sarah, for joining us today. I just had a question about the practicality or the deliverability of the Eastern Bay proposal if we weren't to submit a proposal, because then we would be in a situation where they've submitted and the rest of the Bay of Plenty would be in the backstop. Would our not submitting be of great detriment to their proposal?
It's a great question. And so I think probably initially what was anticipated is that you would have regions submit in their entirety and everyone would be in Head Start or everyone would be in backstop. It's something that is top of mind for the policy teams, and there are definitely ways through that. So there's a question about the transition of those regional services, those regional council services, but there is no indication that it has to be a whole region goes. There is the potential that sub-regional proposals could be accepted and other parts of the region could be in backstop. So to answer your question in a short version is no, it wouldn't impact on them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a question for Sarah. Thank you for joining us today. This arrangement that's before us keeps on being framed as Head Start or backstop. But isn't it the case that we still have the Local Government Act, and in particular Part 3 of the Local Government Act? So if we were to decide today not to put in a Head Start application, we could do what is happening in Southland with Gore Council and Invercargill Council, and work through the Part 3 process to progress local government reform in this region.
Look, legally, that is an option open to you. My suspicion, and again, this is all the Head Start and backstop legislation has not been drafted or proposed, but I suspect there's going to be a desire for the entire country to be sorted out in that time frame. I actually have worked at the Local Government Commission. They're not quick processes. So I think it is likely that Southland's an exception because it's already under that, in that process, so I don't want to comment on what's happening there. But anyone that started a new Local Government Commission process, it may find themselves still swept up in Head Start and backstop. But that is not policy, but that's Sarah Palacic advice. I do not think that my own personal opinion is that that's unlikely to be an alternative pathway for those that are not already in it.
If I may reflect on your comments and see if you can feed back to me. One of the things we're struggling with is the time frame, and we're struggling with the fact that we haven't consulted properly with the community. So the Part 3 process would potentially enable us to tick those boxes and put us in a strong position to be to present to central government something that we finally become comfortable with after talking to our community.
Yeah, you're not alone in expressing concerns about the time frame. I have to say, could I make one other comment? In terms of the Local Government Commission process, the only one that's ever successfully gone through is Banks Peninsula with Christchurch. They are a very high threshold because you must have referenda in each of those council districts. So it's quite a complex, it's an expensive process and it's quite a complex process, and it doesn't often result in change. That's from having worked at the Local Government Commission.
Yes, in this particular case, we wouldn't be looking at amalgamating, we'd be looking at forming up into a unitary, so we perhaps don't need the double referendum in that case, so it might be more palatable to the Rotorua community, I would suggest.
Yeah, I'm unsure about whether, so forgive me, I'm unsure about whether you can use the Local Government Commission process to turn into a unitary. You may be able to, but I wouldn't want to commit that that's, I have to read the legislation first.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Patterson, followed by Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, sorry, I did have one question that I was going to ask at the end of my last opportunity. It's just a very simple question. So going back to the backstop issue, is there any opportunity for negotiation between an affected council and central government or not?
As part of the backstop process? Is that the question?
Yes.
The backstop process is undecided at the moment, so I can't, I'm unsure, and it may be that there are opportunities, but I don't want to sit here and say yes, there definitely will be, because it's an undesigned process, and ministers have been clear that it will be central government led. Central government led does not mean that local government doesn't have input, but it does mean that it will be led centrally.
Okay, so it's like you're either at the table or you're on the menu. Okay, thank you.
I'm not. I know I've heard that a lot, and it gets a bit of a laugh, but I'm not quite sure that the options are quite that distinct. I think that there are positions in between there.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a question possibly for the CE, because it's in one of our recommendations is that we could delegate to the CE to develop and submit an eligible Head Start process that includes a Western Unitary Authority comprising of the current borders of the Western Bay of Plenty District, who have clearly said they don't want to be part of that, and Tauranga City. My question is, what would such a proposal look like based on what Tauranga has already resolved as a council and what we have here in front of us today? Can you just give us some context around what that could look like?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Barker. Looks like a weekend's work for me and some of my team to be able to pull that together in the next couple of days. Which, and not to be glib, I haven't turned my mind in the time we've had between yesterday afternoon and now to how we would bring those two documents together physically. One of them is, of course, attached to your agenda, but the Tauranga City Council one isn't. I can outline some principles that I would approach if this council directed me to proceed with that. And one is to use an additive framework. So we would not take anything out of what each of the councils had resolved they wanted to be included as part of the proposal. Now, naturally, it leaves the question of how a regional council or regional functions transitional arrangements, transitional governance, detailed design governance arrangements, and other future arrangements are described differently between the two documents. And I would be working with the Chief Executive and senior staff of Tauranga City Council over the weekend to try and try and draft something that adequately captures the views of both councils, and expect that there would be limited instances in which there would be outright contradictions that we would need to resolve through the detailed proposal stage. Where those exist, my approach would be to be quite transparent about them and be clear that we would need to resolve them through a process of discussion between Tauranga City Council and Rotorua Lakes Council, again, subject to this council's direction and decision.
So further question through you, Madam Chair. So there could end up being some inconsistencies between the two versions that get merged together because our proposal is slightly different to Tauranga's, and we won't have any oversight over that as elected members before it goes away.
Through you, Madam Chair, Councillor, that's right, just in terms of the practicalities of bringing together those two documents. If you look at Tauranga City Council's resolutions, they've resolved to delegate that to the Chief Executive. You have resolutions in front of you to delegate to me to carry that work out with some quite clear outlines that whatever I deliver then is not inconsistent with Council's directions and previously approved material. I won't be, I'm not underestimating how tricky that could potentially be. And as I said, I can outline some possible approaches that I would take to it. And then through the detailed design, the detailed proposal stage, obviously, there's the opportunity to resolve them. I will note that as part of the drafting that you've got in your packs, and based on Council's direction during the workshop, there is a condition in the drafting, which is subject to the final negotiation with government. This council would have the final decision about whether it continued with the detailed proposal or not. So in a sense, that is quite a significant condition, and if you approve that, then it would give this council a measure of protection that you can still finally pull out of the proposal should you not be happy with whatever is negotiated with government. Can I just add that doesn't mitigate all of the risks associated with proceeding down that path, because obviously by making that decision, we've got to consider, as outlined in the report, what that would do to relationships and other collaborative agreements that we'd need to have with the Western Bay Plenty, knowing, of course, and understanding that, again, there are diverse views even across that council, and a number of councillors did support the proposition to amalgamate with the Western Bay as part of a Western Unitary Council. So I think those are some guidelines, but I can't give you a direct answer. And to be clear, I wouldn't expect in the time that there'd be the opportunity to bring this back to Council for approval.
Thank you. And
Madam Chair, could I add to that answer? Another option, and I am seeing this in other regions, is not to put the two documents together, but instead put a cover letter that said that the two documents should be treated as one proposal. Ideally, in that cover letter, if there were significant differences in the way that you treated regional functions, you would identify those and change them. But there'll also be a process by which we, and when I say we, I mean myself as a partnership director, come back for clarifying questions. So if we see inconsistencies in the way in which regional functions have been treated in the two proposals, that will be a question. And if you know what those are, you have a little bit of time to decide what your answers are, maybe even early next week, because there'll be a process of us obviously, we're going to take Monday to read all the proposals, and then we'll start, the assessment teams will start assessing them, and we'll be providing context and clarifying questions with the council. So you're welcome to combine it into one document if you think that's the best, but that is not a requirement in order for it to be a single proposal.
Thank you. And just one final question. Our CEO just said that, this is probably a question for Sarah, as much, I think. We suggest putting a clause in that, subject to final negotiation with the government, we would have the ability to pull out of the proposal at some stage. At what stage would that be, and is that actually acceptable to government? When would that happen, and can that happen?
You would need, so that would probably be something that we would come back and clarify what you meant by that. So when would you think you would want to pull out? On what conditions would you want to pull out? Would it be a unilateral decision? Because the other thing is, if you are treated as a single proposal, the whole proposal is you and that Western Bay of Plenty. So if Rotorua pulls out, that means the whole proposal is pulled out of. So you can. It's not. Even though there are two unitary councils created, it is a single proposal. So Rotorua pulling out means that Tauranga and Western Bay can't go ahead either. So that is the sort of thing that if I was the Western Bay and I was Tauranga and I saw that condition in there, I would want to understand it better. So off ramps are fine, but off ramps need to be really clear about when you would use them, why you would use them, and whether they would be unilateral or whether they would also require Tauranga's agreement, and what if any agreement of central government for those off ramps.
Thank you. That's clarified it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Okawa-Tate. I've got a couple of questions, and then I've got some questions also from Her Worship. So I'll go Councillor Okawa-Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine are more in the light of comments rather than questions at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions, and I'll go to Your Worship and then back to Councillor Lee. So just wanted to ask, currently, because on that slide that the CE had, Eastern Bay have already submitted, depending on whether we decide to submit or not, what is the likelihood that we would then be forced into a bay-wide amalgamation with or without the Eastern Bay of Plenty sort of submission being tied up into ours? Is that a possibility?
Sorry, I don't quite understand this. So, is the question if everyone went into backstop, how likely are you to be in a Bay of Plenty?
Or if part of us went into a backstop, how likely would it be that we would then be forced into a bay-wide amalgamation?
I can't answer that question. I think if you're in a backstop, you will be in an arrangement. I think. I couldn't tell you. Because, particularly because the way in which the Waikato and Bay of Plenty are kind of adjoining and have communities of interest across those two regions. It's not a simple part of the country. I wouldn't want to say exactly the configuration. We don't know who will get through in a head start and what the councils and backstop might be, and therefore what the backstop arrangements might be.
Okay, thank you. The second question was around transitional arrangements. That is something that hasn't really been canvassed in any detail around how the proposed amalgamated councils would work together. And how would you see that working, given that we would have effectively an unwilling council that would be asked to join us in creating the transitional arrangements and deciding which functions were to be delivered both locally and regionally?
It's a great question because, again, this isn't the only proposal that has an unwilling partner. And I think that's something that will be something to be worked through for successful Head Start proposals. There is a desire for those unwilling partners to be able to contribute, but exactly how that works and what are the logistics of working with an unwilling partner when you actually only have 6 months to do detailed design. So I think that is something that for those successful Head Start proposals will be something that MCERT officials will be talking to you in terms of implementation.
Okay, and one final. Thank you. One final question is our proposed draft Head Start proposal included a number of items that we'd like to have a discussion with government about. We'd received some advice from you that it would be better in some situations not to make them conditions, but for us to be able to discuss and negotiate with those. How does that, you see that working when you're saying that our submission must be combined with I'll call it the Tauranga submission? They may have different requests in terms of those other negotiated items. How do we see that when you're saying they then have to be combined together as one proposal?
It's another great question. So it is treated as one proposal. So if any of those conditions, so in your initial draft, one of the requests was rates on Crown resources and land. And if that was accepted, I mean, you could still make that a Rotorua specific revenue stream. You don't have to have all requests go across both proposed unitary councils. But if that was accepted, that would be fine. If it wasn't accepted, it would mean that the Western Bay of Plenty unitary would not go ahead because you were treated as one proposal. And similarly, if there's anything in the Western Bay of Plenty proposal or unitary in terms of requests that we didn't think was possible, that would mean that the Rotorua unitary would not go ahead.
Okay, thank you for answering that. I've got Her Worship, the Mayor had some questions, and then Councillor Lee. Your Worship.
Sorry, it was stuck on another screen. I just had comments for when we're ready, thanks.
What was that? Oh, I'll just take questions for now, Your Worship, and then we'll get to comments. So, Councillor Lee?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And this is perhaps a question both for Sarah and Sam. So, further to my last question, where I was inquiring into the applicability of Part 3 of the Local Government Act, I have just asked AI whether forming a unitary under Part 3 of the Local Government Act is a possibility. It tells me that it is, and it bases that on Clause 14.2a of Schedule 3. Now, given that you've worked in the Local Government Commission, you're probably familiar with it. I'll read it out for you and for everybody's benefit. So we're talking about the content of a reorganisation plan. The reorganisation plan must describe for each affected local authority proposed to be continued, A, the type of local authority. So unitary would be a type of local authority, I presume. So do you have any feedback on that?
I'll jump into this one because we've already provided some advice on this, and I think this was one of the options that was presented on the 25th of July report. So it is possible, and I think probably about three or four meetings in relation to this. One of the requirements of that is that we have approval from both of the regional councils as part of it, and so to date that we've asked each of the regional councils twice, and on both occasions they've said that they would be unwilling to provide that support. I'm not saying that if this was approved by this council we could ask again. Then the difficulty too is that then that also needs to go to the minister as well, and while there's a process like this going on, I can imagine, I can't speak on behalf of ministers, but I can't imagine that a minister, even if we went to the process of having a referendum and all of those types of things and got approval of the regional councils and did all those things that we could do in the time frame before 2028, that a minister probably would be willing to approve it. And so I guess it's probably a bit of a legal lawyery answer of saying it's not a no, but it's all of those steps would be required. So I guess my advice would be that it would be unlikely that that would be successful, and we would very seriously need to consider the cost implications to our residents of going through what might be ultimately an unsuccessful campaign.
Right. If I may just provide a little feedback on that. We did meet...
Councillor Lee, I'll just take questions at this stage. We're not in discussion. So if you've got any more questions for Sarah at the stage, otherwise...
Well, I do beg your a little leniency just so that we can respond, because we've got some further information in relation to what Sam said. You'll recall that we met with the Bay of Plenty Regional Councillors a couple of weeks ago, and they indicated that they would receive such a request and decide on its merits.
I think Sam has also indicated it requires the consent of the other council plus a referendum and the time frame. So if you have any more questions on that, you're free to ask them. Otherwise, can we just keep this part of the meeting to questions?
As you wish.
Thank you. Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Andrew, this one's for you and for the proposal. When I made an assumption, I guess, today when I'd read through what we would be voting on later, that the proposal would be similar to the original proposal that we intended to put in with the 3 unitaries. So basically like a cover letter, and instead of 3 parts, it would have 2 parts. But on your recent points there, I gathered that it wouldn't be like that. It would be one proposal essentially coming from Tauranga and Rotorua, and not so it wouldn't be a part 1 and part 2 under a cover letter / proposal. It would be just one proposal. Is that, how do you see this working?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Madam Chair. No, there are 2 ways it could be done. It could be done as Sarah Palashik indicated, that potentially their document, which is ready, and our document, which is in front of you in draft format, and then a cover letter across the 2 that is signed by the 2 councils, so Tauranga City Council and Rotorua Lakes Council, or the mayors on behalf, however you wish to do it. And then the 2 documents potentially stand on your own. I think there's still an element, and we received feedback from MCERT, that the stronger the coherence between those 2 parts, or the 2 documents, or one document, however it's described, the more coherent that is, the more likely that proposal will be viewed favourably. So I'd still want to do a significant amount of work, and particularly, as is mentioned earlier, if there are conditions in the Tauranga proposal that affect Rotorua and affect our chances, if that's the will of this council, to try and submit an eligible proposal, then I'd want to understand those as well. So I don't at this point necessarily think that it needs to be one document. It could be 2 parts and a cover letter that deems it to be a single proposal. Obviously that would not be for the whole of the Bay of Plenty anymore, because the Eastern Bay of Plenty have submitted a proposal, so it would cover these 3 councils and approved by the 2 councils who are deciding.
And if I can just add to that, I spent a bit of time this morning trying to get my head around what that could look like if we did 2 in a cover letter or merge them. And so essentially, I think we talked about in the workshop, but also in the previous council meeting, that big chunks of these proposals, both for us as well as the Tauranga City / Western Bay, which will now be Tauranga City proposal, is focused on the territorial authority functions. So essentially those would still stand as they are. The regional allocation is very lightly talked about in the Tauranga City Council, in their proposal, Tauranga City Council / Western Bay, and they even referred to it in their resolution, which I think the Chief Executive has on this PowerPoint a little bit later. And so essentially, I would say probably 80% of those proposals, for each of them, probably the middle chunks of each of them, would stand as they are, whether you included them in one document or 2 documents, and then there would probably just need to be some alignment around a transfer of those regional council functions and the ongoing governance and how those decisions are made. Ours is probably more prescriptive than theirs are. Theirs essentially, and from their resolution says that this is a matter to be decided once it's decided they're in the process or not. And then the final part, as the Chief Executive mentioned, is those conditions, which also don't feel massively unaligned, except for our kind of off-ramp isn't in the Western Bay proposal. And so that's essentially a high level of where I sit, but yeah.
Thank you. This is a question actually for your worship, and it just concerns the letter which may or may not bind the two proposals together. So at the last meeting we did have a draft letter which you had proposed that each of the mayors, which included at the time Western Bay, sign. As part of that, it also indicated that the mayors would be open to potential boundary changes. And I think that was the thing that potentially was leaving the door open for us when we had potentially discussed originally about other options for Rotorua. But one of the things that's come through, and I understand from both the Tauranga resolutions and from Western Bay, was their reluctance to sign a letter where we were signalling potential boundary adjustments in relation to Makatu and the wider Kaituna catchment. So is there an opportunity to understand what things or matters might be in a joint letter from yourself and Mayor Drysdale from Tauranga? Because we were obviously won't have...
Thank you. And I do want to confirm for those that aren't aware that there is not support for the Makatu and Kaituna catchment towards Makatu in the Western Bay or in TCC to be merged into Rotorua. Now that's their view. The purpose of having the minor boundary changes is that actually this is a very unique opportunity for us to be able to look across the whole district, and this is reflected in other councils as well. So for us, because Taupo did not go with us, we may also wish to consider the southern part of our district, which does have thousands of locals that may, if the opportunity arose, choose to go catchment-wide, so they may choose to go towards Taupo. None of that is confirmed. We don't have any steps or process in place to do that, but having the minor boundary changes, specifically also saying with the support of both territorial authorities, that just allowed the opportunity across the district. So, yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, actually. And the cover letter, the purpose of that, and what we were originally intending is that would be across the bay, but it's simply because we were going to have the different sub-regions who have made their own proposals, just as we have. It's basically just confirming that we are looking to submit together. So Andrew has helpfully collated feedback from all of the mayors on the draft letter, so he may wish to speak to that as well. But essentially it's just showing that just confirming that there is support for insert in ministers and cabinet to consider that a joint proposal also, a joint submission for the two unitaries.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Rokawate?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a substantial and well-informed submission from Te Arawa iwi leaders, and of course with Western Bay deciding that they were going to stand aside from the Head Start process. Have we heard anything at all from our Te Arawa partners in terms of a reaction from them? Because I think this would be something that we should be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rokawate. Through you, Madam Chair, I might just pass to Mr Warbrick to give us an update. Mr Warbrick or Mr Fellows? We have, as I said, I think in my opening remarks, we understand what we have been advised of, but we also understand that a range of different views have been presented to other councils. Maybe I'll leave that with Mr Warbrick to elaborate on.
Kia ora, Councillor, through you, Madam Chair. Te Aroha iwi leaders provided a submission, which is Te Aroha iwi leaders provided a submission which you've received recently. We've received no notice that that has changed. They were informed hours ago of the resolutions that came out of Western Bay. I think some of them might be online, but to date we've received no changes to the position.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. I know that Western Bay was, in terms of Makatua and the Lower Kaituna, was so important to them. So it does change the scenario somewhat.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lee, you had a further question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think this is directed at Andrew. A couple of meetings ago on this topic, I asked if correspondence to the Regional Council in relation to whether they would assist us and cooperate with the Part 3 amalgamation, and that was put down as a... Anyway, the information was forwarded to elected members, and as I recall, we had emailed them, but we hadn't received any formal written response to our request for cooperation. Would that be accurate?
I'd rather rely on my email record than my memory at this point, Councillor Lee. Yeah. But again, as in the last several weeks, nothing has changed in terms of the Regional Council's priority to work with one territorial authority on a Part 3 reorganisation as opposed to advancing their views in regard to Head Start. So I haven't seen I don't recall seeing any further response on that matter. Really happy to follow up on it, but I think the advice provided through this discussion in terms of where that supporting a Part 3 reorganisation would sit for the Regional Council, for the Local Government Commission, for the Ministry and for Ministers, I think has probably been well traversed.
Yes, I think we didn't receive a formal response from them. Thank you.
Andrew, I just have one sort of procedural question, and it relates to the resolutions that we made on the 29th of July. So on the 29th of July, we agreed that we would submit a Head Start outline proposal, and that today would be the day that we would effectively approve or not that submission. But as part of the resolutions, councillors, you do have a copy of this in the pack that was provided. Resolution 4 was that the council notes the risks outlined in this report, that proposals can only be finalised with approval of other named councils in the short timeframes provided by the government proposals, which didn't allow for more in-depth community consultation and due diligence. Given that we had made a resolution that we really we're making these decisions with the approval of other councils, how do we deal with that resolution, given that what we're proposing now, if we support the resolution to proceed with Tauranga, means that we are now doing it without the approval of the Western Bay District Council?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might pass to Mr Fellows to provide one of his classically legalistic responses in this case.
Yeah, thank you for that. The answer is it depends. No. So essentially, I think what you're trying to get at is if this meets the threshold of a revocation under the standing orders or under the legislation. And so essentially, the way that I would see it, it obviously gets close, but it's, for me, a new decision, not necessarily a revocation. Matters have significantly changed since then, and so that might have been the intention based on the staff report at the time and the information that we knew, but things have changed in the last wee while, and we've got a new staff report and requesting a new separate decision. So a revocation itself is removing a specific earlier decision, whereas this is probably arguably an alteration, but probably not even that. I would see it more as a new decision. So that's the way that I would see it in reading the rules and having had a look at the legislation and the cases in relation to that. But yeah, essentially a new decision based on new information on a part of a resolution. If this was a situation where we had one specific resolution, and this was changing just that, but it was part of what was a broader resolution. There's newer information that changes that, so my view would be, and my advice would be, that it's a new decision itself rather than a revocation.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillors, I think we've just about reached the end of questions, unless there are any further questions from Councillor Brown or Councillor Wang online. No?
Madam Chair, can I just ask...
Nothing from me, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Wang?
No, the questions have all been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, just in relation to the information from Sam then, that a new decision. So we're at a special we're at a special meeting now. So when would our community then be informed that a decision that was made that is no longer, that is going to be overridden by the new information that we've received, which will then necessitate a new decision, that they should be aware is going to be discussed and then voted on. So I'm just saying, are we missing a step there?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Madam Chair, I think Mr Fellows, feel free to add to this, but it was an extraordinary meeting. It was organised with the intention of approving a submission document. That is still part of this meeting. However, as circumstances have changed, and that's well outlined in the paper, hopefully all agree, that we've addressed why we've got new decisions in front of us. That we do understand that the previous decisions of council were predicated on an expectation of an outcome that now has not transpired, and therefore we've got to give you different options to give effect to that same 29th of July decision. As I said, again, the outcome that we're proposing here, that is proposed here, is not any different in terms of the outcome for the Rotorua district, not materially different, but it does go through a different pathway. And as you mentioned, there are some aspects of these resolutions adopted on the 29th that we will not be giving effect to and are not going to be, in fact, fulfilled through this proposed process.
Yeah, I've got, Your Worship, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, through you. And if I can just make this as simple as possible, we are very lucky that we happen to have this meeting because, very unfortunately, and it is disappointing, the Western Bay County Council had their vote 6-4. If there was one vote the other way, it would have been a casting vote, which we have seen in other places in the country. So the sentiment, once again, why they voted against was due to not feeling that they had enough time to work through the details. And again, if I can put it as simply as possible, our position still remains the same. The position and the recommendations that are before you align with what our community told us in just over 1,000 pieces of feedback that we received as well. So I would say, for all intents and purposes, the purpose of today is just to confirm this, knowing now that there is one council who voted against going into Head Start. But yes, Andrew's correct from a Rotorua perspective. We are the same.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a question for Mayor Tapsell. She's been involved in the mayoral forum and has had discussions with other mayors, and I seem to recall her saying repeatedly that the mayors had agreed amongst themselves that they would not compel each other or other councils to or coerce another council into a Head Start proposal. Do I recall that correctly, and has something changed, and if so, what?
Obviously something's changed, Councillor Lee. So I have spoken with the Mayor of Western Bay of Plenty following the meeting. He understands the situation that both us and Tauranga are placed in, and he does support that we make our decision based on the best interest of our district. So they've done that, and the decision for us, and this is why I say it's very lucky we've had this meeting, is because if we did not have this opportunity to then look at this alternative pathway to put forward eligible Head Start, when Western Bay of Plenty took that vote, we technically would have then become ineligible in general. So, yes, we had through Bay of Plenty Mural Forum, and alongside RCEs, been working very hard in the short 3 months. I've regularly given you all updates on how those discussions have gone, and this is where we landed with the 3 unitary proposals before us.
So, if I understand correctly, you're comfortable with the Mayor of Western Bay to override his council's decision. Is that right?
Point of order. That's not what Mayor Tapsell said, and that's a misrepresentation.
Well, that's why I was asking it as a question, Councillor Sanford.
That's not what the Mayor said.
Councillors, thank you. Do you want to rephrase it slightly, Councillor Lee, if you wish to ask?
Yeah, I'm trying to draw a distinction. So the Mayor's had agreed to not compel other councils, or as it's phrased here, the proposals can only be finalised with the approval of other councils. I think what Mayor Tapsell is saying is she's going to do that with the approval of the Western Bay Mayor, but still not the Western Bay Council. That's the distinction I'm drawing.
Your Worship, did you want to clarify that then for Councillor Lee?
Not really. This is just frustrating. We've got a really important decision in front of us. As I mentioned, the Bay of Plenty Mayors have been working really hard for all of our councils. We keep them frequently up to date. We are elected as mayors. We act as the leaders of our councils. The Bay of Plenty Mural Forum is an excellent opportunity for us to work across the region, and we've done that. So, yes, we started with the principle, including in this council, where we did not wish to force anyone. What has resulted in Western Bay of Plenty not feeling that they had enough time, so then voting against Head Start means that it actually forces everyone else into the backstop. So before us, and the decision in front of you, is to decide whether you are comfortable being in the backstop and not eligible, and then the government making the decision for our community, or if you want to, although Western Bay of Plenty did not have enough time to vote against, that we put in an eligible proposal with Tauranga so that we can protect and as best as possible represent the interests and the views of our community that we have very clearly received, alongside our Te Aroha iwi partners that have significant treaty settlements over our district.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Maybe, Your Worship, if you just clarify, so I'm assuming then that it's only yourself and Mayor Drysdale that will sign the letter, that it's not a requirement that Mayor Denyer take part, given that it's going to be a proposal submitted by just our council and Tauranga. Is that how I understand the overarching letter will tie these two proposals together?
Yes, that is correct. But Mayor James Denyer was very aware of what we will be discussing today as well.
Thank you.
And in my discussions with him, he did wish to express, and if it was helpful, so that our councillors also know, that the sentiment behind those who were voting against because there wasn't enough time. So I don't think there was any intention that they were wanting to force the rest of us into backstop. That just unfortunately is a consequence of the decision.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Maxwell, did you have any questions? Because I'm going to bring the session to a close. So last opportunity, if you do have any questions for Sarah or our CE or Sam or Your Worship.
I do have something sort of burning inside me that, because the position that we got in, unfortunately, I don't know who would be the best one to answer this question, but we have it in 7.3 now, right? Kind of rules. Tangata whenua interests are central to any future reorganisation proposal. And we have had indications that have come through from from our iwi partners in support of what Rotorua Lakes Council, that could include the Mai Makatu ki Tongariro possible. Does this mean we can include them in whatever we might put forward in support of this possibly joining in a working relationship more than anything else with Tauranga?
I think our CE can answer.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Councillor, I think there's two parts to the question there. One is around working together with iwi partners, and I think that's well traversed by this council. It's a commitment both as part of our normal practice, but also through the Head Start proposal, as you've seen. The second question, though, is more around, if I understand it, around the Mai Maketu ki Tongariro in terms of boundary adjustments. I think, as you might see in the resolutions, and potentially if you go back and look at the Western Bay of Plenty council decisions, they're very clear from that council's point of view that whilst we may have received feedback from our iwi partners to support bringing Maketu into the Rotorua district, my understanding is they've received some potentially different advice, and so their position is that they would not support any boundary adjustments to include Maketu and the Kaituna catchment into the Rotorua district. My understanding is that that is also Tauranga City Council's position, and so potentially even through this joint proposal where Tauranga City Council and Rotorua Lakes Council, as the two proposing councils, could have agreed to some boundary adjustments. My understanding is that is not supported by either Western Bay Council or Tauranga City Council at this stage.
And if I can add to that, and not wanting to speak on behalf of our iwi chairs, but being involved in the mayoral working group and working through with their technical group on what their submission looked like, they were very aware of the fact that just like they wouldn't want to be have their boundaries changed for someone else, they were willing to force someone else to do that. And so while their primary proposal was for the entire Maketu Tongariro catchment area, including a number of spaces even more broadly out east, they recognised that in this type of proposal, sticking with the current boundaries made the most sense, and that's why they were supportive of the three-unitary whole of Bay of Plenty approach. And the Bay of Plenty approach appealed to them because that also protected some of those ongoing catchment settlement issues that they had currently protected, and that's why when it flowed through, that it had, and in all our proposals, have that view of working together as a Bay of Plenty approach and those minor boundary changes. So, yeah, from their perspective, they didn't want to force anyone into it, and that's why they were comfortable in the approach that we took. And I would suggest that, in this proposal, we don't have support of either council, and without trying to speak for them, I can't imagine, based on the feedback I've received from our iwi partners, they would be interested in us forcing an unwilling other iwi entity into some type of arrangement without consulting with that iwi entity.
Does that answer the question, Councillor Maxwell?
Yeah, just further to the response and the answer, does anyone know any information? We have Maori wards in our TLA. Tauranga does. Does Western Bay of Plenty in the referendum, do they have Maori wards to help with this decision at all or not? Please.
I don't believe so, Councillor, but again, just to be clear, the representation proposed for the Rotorua district is as per the proposal we've got in here, which is to retain the Māori wards as per the referendum held at the last local government elections.
Thank you.
it's quite a significant decision that you're making today, particularly with regards to our relationship with Western Bay Council. Have we identified some sort of plan post this decision to see the TCC in Western Bay, despite the decision being heard today, the decision to make some TCC? What does that look like, this decision?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Madam Chair. Look, on a working level with staff, our first priority would obviously be to work with Tauranga City Council to agree the proposal firstly, if it's approved, and then work through the detailed design. I think, as has been answered by MCERT earlier, the strict government requirements for working with that unwilling partner are unclear, but every discussion I've had with staff at any council would be, practically speaking, you would need their involvement. How much support that has, given that another council, they might perceive that another council has made a decision to effectively overturn their council's decision, and how that would flow into engagement with staff or elected members, I can't answer. I have identified it as a risk, and it's been discussed throughout the country as what does that mean for working together going forward, both on the design of this proposal, but for all the many different activities we work together on is something we've outlined in the report. Obviously, maybe Her Worship may want to comment, but the Bay of Plenty Marrow Forum remains a forum that will exist for the rest of this triennium, maybe I'll leave it with there. But I think from a staff point of view, we would certainly want to work together. How that would flow through from elected member decisions based on our decision, based on their decision, I'm unclear about, and it's outlined as a risk.
And at the risk of jumping in before the Mayor, I liken it a little bit to the way that we'll end up if it proceeds working with the regional council. So the regional council hasn't had the ability to provide a submission either, and while Western Bay had the opportunity and they decided not to, the regional council will be a partner that we would need to work quite closely with, and very closely with, as we've mentioned in our proposal, to get there. So I would see it as quite similar. While they weren't a party to the proposal, it would be a party that at a staff level we would definitely be working alongside to use the expertise, and that at a governance level it would be up to all of you as elected members to, I think, put the best interests of the various territorial authorities at the heart. And I would suggest that even councillors who voted for something would still want to get the best outcome for their communities, despite the fact that they might not have necessarily agreed with it. And so I would liken it to that. And just like the regional councillors have committed that their intention was a Bay of Plenty approach was their preferred approach, not that they had the option to prefer an approach, but based on what we're doing, they've committed to working as closely as they can with us to make sure that the transition is as successful as possible, so that the regional functions can be maintained. And so I'd imagine that Western Bay can do the same, but as the Chief Executive's outlined, that is a risk that we've highlighted to making this decision.
And I'm going to take the risk of jumping in again before...
Sorry, I want to finish. Across our region, we will continue to need to work very closely with one another, because although we're coming to the end of the sprint, like the marathon is still going, so we still need to complete a quite significant transition of regional council functions. So we have already, and CESA are putting this together, looking at those functions, and that's where we will, immediately after this, to answer your question, Tenika, we will let all of the councils in the region know, but we will need to set up some time together, so that once the CEs finish the piece of work on the list of functions and what could most likely be delivered locally, sub-regionally or regionally, and then that will be up to a future council either discussion or decision depending on the significance.
Okay, thank you very much, councillors. What I might do is I think we'll take a short break until 2:30. I'd like to thank Sarah very much for taking the time today to join us and answer any questions. I think we'll just take a short break, councillors, and then I'll come back and we'll put a resolution on the table and then we'll take the debate from there. So we'll just break now till 2:30. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Resume the meeting now. Live stream is now running again. So we have closed the section relating to questions. You have the paper in front of you. There are two potential pathways in terms of recommendations, so either 2 to 8 or 9 and 10. Councillor Patterson.
Madam Chair, thank you. I move item 10, recommendation 10, but I would like to add a few words if I may.
Sorry, are you proposing a motion?
Yes.
Sorry, what's the motion then?
So I move recommendation 10 with the following words to be added so that it reads like this. Council accepts the risks associated with the backstop policy and resolves not to submit a Head Start proposal, and that Council confirms our intent to explore local government reform options for our district alongside other willing councils. Our preferred approach is a unitary authority with Rotorua and or Taupo and or boundary adjustments to include the Kaituna catchment only with the approval of the affected communities. Mai makatu ki Tongariro.
Can we just hang on a minute? That's quite a lot. Have you got that written somewhere? Could you just perhaps hand that to Gomiti and we could just get that up on the screen first? Sorry, Councillor, I'm just seeking confirmation. Does that include 9, that the Council notes it as a consequence of the Western Bay Plenty District Council's decision to not participate? So you're suggesting an alternative clause 10?
Yes.
So those, okay, so it's 9 and a new clause 10 with your
Yes.
additional words. Let's just wait till we bring that up on screen and then we can see if there's a seconder for that.
Please, second that. I'm really concerned about naming another council that has decided to go on their own. So although Western Bay is unwilling, we also have, this would be a surprise to Taupo.
Your Worship, can we just wait? Could we just wait, because we need to get a seconder and then we can discuss that, whether there needs to be any amendments or anything for that? Sorry, I can't. Sorry, was that Councillor Lee?
Yeah, I just thought you might like to move your microphone a little closer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm not speaking loudly enough. Hopefully. So I'll just get Councillor Patterson, can we just double check that? So what you're proposing is 9, that the council notes as a consequence of Western Bay of Plenty Council's decision to not participate in Head Start, a Western Bay of Plenty Unitary Authority will not be created without Rotorua's participation in a joint proposal with Tauranga City Council. And you're also, council accepts the risks associated with the backstop policy and resolves to not submit a Head Start proposal, and the council accepts the risks associated with the backstop policy. Oh, I think there's too many. I'll just read this. Sorry, I shouldn't. Accepts the risks, full stop. Should it then read, and then secondly, should that be a new point? Resolves. Sorry, that I think.
Madam Chair, I think you've got the risks twice.
Yes, I think we had. So we just stop after backstop policy at the end of the first line. I'll get a CE to try and just see if we can read.
Just take out the 3. It was just a reference for me. Just take that out.
Sorry, it's your motion, so what? Sorry. Oh. Okay, sorry. We've got a problem with Councillor Brown online, so we'll just see if we can get that fixed up. Is that Councillor Brown? Okay, sorry, could you just, Councillor Patterson, that's your... Councillor Brown, you've just rejoined us. Councillor Patterson has a motion up there. We're just trying to get the wording right, and then I'll see if there's a seconder for that. So can you just please double check that your what is up there is now reflective of what you are proposing?
Correct.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Barker? Open for discussion. Councillor Patterson as the mover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, this morning the game changed again with the moving of Eastern Bay independently submitting their own proposal. We'd already heard that Western Bay had decided that they weren't going to participate in our 3 unitary bay authority. So that's a complete change from where we were to where we are today. I agree wholeheartedly. This morning, or last night when I emailed you, my colleagues, I was very angry. And that was a reaction brought on by emotion. I thought about it overnight and thought about it more this morning, and I know I wouldn't want to be forced into somebody else's thought of a council, a unitary authority. And I certainly don't believe that we have the right to overturn the decision made by the Western Bay Council. They did that in their best interest for their community. So looking at our own best interest, from the start, I have advocated since probably February for the Mai Makatu Ki Tongariro concept. and I've explained the rationale behind that. I was pleased and encouraged to hear the feedback from our iwi partners. There's a lot of reasons for this concept, and the key to me from this motion is that we now have the time, if we go down this path, if you agree today, to actually really fully explore that. By the time central government comes to us and says, right, you've chosen not to do Head Start, you're in backstop, as Sarah indicated, there is no definite no negotiation clause anywhere. We would have the opportunity to, I think she said, have input into a plan for our future. And to me, the Mai Makitu ki Tongariro option is the strongest one because of its historic legitimacy, the many economic benefits that it would bring to us. We would be have a strong voice at the table when it comes to bidding for NZTA funding, etc. We would have influence over our future and for our communities. We would manage our lakes. We would be guiding what happens to our region from this position with the support of our iwi partners. So it would also help us address the funding issues, give us time to deal with the governance structures, figure out how we could work together for the betterment of our community. It aligns communities, catchments, economic interests, legitimate Te Arawa history, and preserves a local democratic voice. But all of that hinges on if we talk to our communities first. We haven't had the opportunity to do that. The people of the coast, the people around Taupo, the people of Rotorua, it's not been real, authentic engagement where we can really just get what they want for their future because of the 90-day time frame. I mean, here we are having the major changes delivered to us this morning, and we're expected to make a decent decision based upon that. It's the whole process, to be honest. And this is not a reflection of our staff. I tip my hat to you all for the effort that you've put into this. This was a very, very big rock to swallow. So this is not a knee-jerk reaction to the Western Bays choosing their own way forward. This is not just a defensive response about trying to avoid being absorbed into a mega Bay of Plenty authority. This is about thinking about our future and giving us the time to do it properly and involve our community along the way. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson, I'll go to Your Worship, the Mayor. Your Worship, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, apologies, sorry, this meeting's gone on quite long, so I needed to find a charger. Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for raising this. I can understand the reasons why you have, but I do want to say that if anyone chooses to support this, the options that we have in front of us are to either submit Head Start, and we've heard very clearly from Insert, I've reiterated this is also what the Minister has told me directly, we've heard very clearly that if you do not choose to go on Head Start, then you are backstop, and that will be the government's, they will determine our future. So I take on board everything that you've said, Councillor Patterson, but that is what we will achieve by being able to go into a Head Start. I am also quite uncomfortable that we have mentioned Taupo in this one, and it'll be a bit of a surprise to them. They've already made their direction clear, and we have already signalled that the door will remain open to them if they do change their mind. So I will be voting against this, because a vote for this means that we won't be taking the opportunity to make those decisions in future. It will be backstop.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Sanford?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm also against this motion. I don't think we're buying with this motion ourselves any more time, because we won't be involved in the process we've been told numerous times that a backstop is a government-led process, so we're not designing a better system that represents our communities. We're not engaging with our communities. What backstop is the government deciding what is going to happen to our communities. My original position is that, what we decided on the 29th of July set out what we think is the best outcomes for our community, which is Rotorua, and so I'll stand by that position, which we need to support our community and make decisions for the best interests of our community with the system that we're in at the moment, which is either Head Start or backstop.
Thank you, Councillor Sanford. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't be supporting the backstop option. For me, if our community or our iwi, if we're not at the table, we'll not have a say whatsoever. And to me, this is the only viable option available to us, it's been pointed out to us, is to, and I like the word work, with Tauranga City Council jointly to put forward our proposal. The report that's come back from the staff, I think, is a lot of good work has gone into it, and I support much that is in there, but to me, the Mai Makatu ki Tongariro option, it suits it better if we're in the Head Start where they can be around the table supporting us, otherwise we'll be ignored. Something else I had here too as well is, I said earlier, our tangata whenua interests are central to any future reorganisation proposal. If we don't put forward a proposal, we will be ignored. And that really worries me. I'm thinking even now what came forward from the proposal from our iwi partners that were here, that the protecting of all the treaty settlement rights that have happened in our region, it's huge. The other councils have made their decision for them. To me, I think we now really consider and look at what's best for Rotorua. In my own humble opinion, I think that we putting forward a submission is the best thing that we can do for our own community. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. I've got Councillor Lee, followed by Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Patterson, for putting this to us. I agree with you that if we call it recommendation 9 and 10 is a good way to go. I'm not persuaded by your particular amendment, however, and I think it's going too specific and too prescriptive at this particular time, but I certainly agree with your sentiment that we should respect the decision of our colleagues at the Western Bay of Plenty Council. And I would signal, Madam Chair, that I'd be happy to move, if this motion fails, number 9 and 10 as written and as presented to us as a recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kaifong. And thank you to Councillor Patterson for providing your comments around this. The part where I'm a bit concerned about this this motion is the fact that both the Western Bay of Plenty and Tauranga have adopted those resolutions strongly opposing those potential boundary adjustments that include Makatu, the wider Kaituna catchment, And so even though this essentially is, to go to backstop, you have a clear opposition towards this from those two territorial authorities with this approach. I think it's already been mentioned, this decision obviously has been so difficult for all of us. There's been so many moving parts and constantly changing last-minute things that have popped up. But for me, it's about our declaration that we have made when we were elected all as councillors at the start of the triennium to do what's best in the best interests of Rotorua and our district, our people. And for me, going to backstop would not be the best decision, in my view, because that takes us out of the discussion it takes away the participation in the discussion that we could have that would shape our future. So I think I will signal that I am happy to move, should this motion fail, I'm happy to move the recommendations, just getting the numbers up, recommendations 2 to 8, should this amendment, this motion fail. I just think that the decision ahead of us, as Councillor Sanford also mentioned, this has been a government decision, and we have had to work within these timeframes and these terms. And I also want to thank Sarah for coming here to provide that extra context, and also to the Mayor for providing the context of Western Bay of Plenty Council's decision not to participate in Head Start, because I think that was a crucial piece of information, and that context is incredibly important when we're making this decision. So, just signalling that I will be happy to move points 2 to 8, recommendation 2 to 8, should this motion fail.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Just for clarification, I think that Councillor Lee has signalled if this motion fails, then he will move 9 and 10 as they are in the paper. Then I'm assuming if that then fails, then you will move options 2 to 8. So any other councillors that wish to speak to this? Councillor Okawa-Tate, Councillor Brown, Councillor Barker. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Nothing from me, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to draw our minds back to our resolutions that we made last time we were sitting around this table with respect to proposals only being finalised with the approval from other named councils, and also that we would not like to be included without our approval either. So keeping that in mind, and the fact that we've come back today because we made an amendment to do so, should the landscape change significantly, I think that it has. It's materially changed, and that's been talked about in great depth. I don't know that I think that the meetings yesterday that was held between the Tauranga City Council and the Western Bay of Plenty was quite conclusive in the fact that Western Bay did not want an amalgamation. I listened to that live stream, listened to it for most of the day, and I heard the many views and concerns around that table. I heard the elected members express concerns around various things, not just the timing. They were concerned about the pace, obviously, of the process, but also the discomfort of the idea of working with things out as they go. They said the devil was in the detail, but there was no detail. Their concerns about representation for communities of interest and smaller communities sitting alongside a larger metro, and they questioned whether bigger was better, the cost of establishment, and last-minute amendments to the mayoral cover letter. So to simplify their discussion in such a way is actually disingenuous, and I just would like to acknowledge the comments made by those Western Bay councillors. They are elected by their community to speak for their community, as are we. I'd also like to note, I'll get on to the motion in a minute, but I'd also like to note that under the Local Government Act, Section 14E, a local authority should actively seek to collaborate and cooperate with other local authorities and bodies to improve the effectiveness and efficiency with which it achieves its identified priorities. And the proposed process within our papers today does not demonstrate these principles to me. This process that we're proposing today to manoeuvre an amalgamation between two other councils who are not willing does not sound like collaborative or cooperative to me, and I don't think that forcing people to do what they don't want to do is an act of good faith. And this will only drive suspicion and mistrust into a situation where we're hoping for successful outcomes and mutual understanding between potential partners. So regardless of what you say around this table, we're going to have to be sitting at their table, whichever table it is, discussing the future arrangements with our partners. And if we are forcing them to do something, then I don't see how that's a very good start to a relationship. I'm quite concerned about the demise of democracy around this kind of approach, and also the lack of a community voice throughout the whole process, to be honest. I think that we don't properly understand the costs of amalgamation and the restructure of this process that's been proposed today with Tauranga City Council. We haven't had the time to investigate this particular option because it was never really on the table for us up until today.
Excuse me, may I just ask, Madam Chair, are we debating the wider recommendations now, all of them? I'm
just trying to actually say why I think we should be taking...
We still are on 10.
Yes, 9 and 10. Yeah. I would just say that if we're going to make a decision to go into the backstop, we need to consider why we're doing that. And if we're going to go into the Head Start with Tauranga, then we need to consider whether we actually have the mandate from our community to do so. Because it's my understanding from our feedback from the community that that was not their preference. So, going against their desires and the feedback, it was not the first priority. Also, I feel that the backstop, although it is a government-led process, it does not mean that we do not have a say, and that was made clear by the representative from MCERT. The mentioning of Taupō in the proposal, I think that is an approach we could take. It's not the only approach, because the resolution also says that we will be willing to work with districts alongside us, and it doesn't actually, it leaves it open for other councils should we wish to do so. So it's an attempt, I think, by Councillor Patterson to leave the door open for discussions to occur, and they may or may not occur. Taupō may well still go with other options, but again, it's just leaving the door open like we did before. And you're right that the Kaituna catchment was also a topic of discussion at that meeting that I listened to. There was quite a lot of concern around the table, both on Tauranga City Council side and also Western Bay, that they were not comfortable with that. And I think largely it was because there hadn't been fulsome conversations with those communities that were affected. So this approach actually allows the time to have the conversations. That's why I would see that was sitting there. I would just also like to say in closing that I would like to respect the self-determination of other communities across the Bay in this process. And if we go ahead with points 2 to 8, I think we're sorely missing the point about self-determination if we force Western Bay into an amalgamation they clearly don't want in order to suit our needs. We wouldn't want another council to do that to us. We clearly stated that we didn't, and yet here we are turning around and doing exactly the same to another council. I don't feel that that's actually morally correct. And also, there have been public statements made that we would do no such thing either. So the saying that I heard, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu, that's a common saying. It doesn't sit well with me, and I certainly don't see it as a good way to start a working relationship with our neighbours. So, Madam Chair, I am in support of this, but I'm open to the amendments that have also been posed, because really that's allowing us time to establish a common understanding and good ground rules across the Bay. We haven't had time to do that, and we're having to rely on forcing the hand of other councils. And I cannot see that this is a good way to move forward in any proposal or any relationship. So that is my reasons for supporting this today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Benfeld, Timothy Benfeld online, do you wish to make any comments on just...
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, I just wanted to acknowledge the thoughts put forward by my colleagues. I did come into today's meeting having quite a clear perspective on the way that I would be voting this afternoon, and still up until this point, I'm quite on the fence, having heard the arguments before us. Probably some of the things that inform my thinking, and I've just written a few thoughts here, is that first and foremost, our consideration should be to serve in the best interests of our community, ensuring that we understand the full risks that lie ahead in terms of this entire process. Unfortunately, the way that this process, the government has structured this process, has left us without a lot of information and without a lot of options. Which has, unfortunately, as we've seen today, has ended up pitting us against our fellow territorial authorities in our region. The other thing I note as well is I think that it is unfortunate that we have had parts of our region who have gone and submitted proposals despite committing to be part of a wider Bay of Plenty proposal. For me, it shows a lack or a breakdown of communications, I suppose, across our territorial authorities, and that too hasn't left us with many options. One thing I do consider quite strongly and clearly is that our iwi and our iwi chairs have put in a lot of time and a lot of effort into providing insights and perspectives as to a way forward. Something that was quite clear from our iwi chairs and our iwi partners was the importance of us as community leaders being at the table and being able to determine our own future. I have concerns on both sides, both through a backstop process of being dictated to by a government determination. Likewise, the moral imbalances that choosing a Head Start proposal without all parties being consenting parties. And so I think up to this point, I'm interested to hear the remaining thoughts before I make my final determination and vote this afternoon. But those are some of my key considerations. I think first and foremost, we have to consider what is the best option for our city to ensure that our self-determination is first and foremost protected. Secondly, for us as a region, what is the best opportunity for us as a region? And I just wanted to thank my colleagues on both sides of this fence this afternoon for sharing such strong arguments and sentiments for both sides. And that's all I had to say. Thank you, Madam Chair, with regards to our kaupapa today. So I'm still in a state of decision making and thinking, and we'll wait until the voting period to make my call.
Okay, thank you very much. We've only got Councillor Brown, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's never been a harder decision to make with so little clear information to hand. On one hand, all of the previous decisions and information we've received has been based on wishful thinking. None of it's resolved in the way that we have been promised. So now we are basing potentially some decisions on more wishful thinking that we think we can get Western Bay to cooperate when clearly they haven't. I'm a bit much the same as Councillor Tamara Benfield. I haven't made up my mind, but I'm really struggling to see the potential or in a decision that makes it clear both for ourselves and for our community. So I think potentially we'll end up in backstop. I don't see Western Bay potentially agreeing with what we're proposing here. So where do we go from here? So potentially the answer is just to accept that we haven't found the solution that suits our people, and potentially backstop is the answer, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Kawate?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to leave my comments a bit till later, but I just want to say that, in my view, relationships are key. They're key to everything, and they're key with our community, and they're certainly key with our councils, with other councils within the Bay of Plenty. And I think that we do put that in jeopardy. I know we want to look to our, we want to represent our community as best we can, but I think we want to do that in an environment that's conducive to going forward together, actually. So, and I think once trust has been eroded, and it's very hard to come back from that. And I suspect really that we're, to a certain extent, Tauranga will now be, Western Bay of Plenty will now be railroaded into something that they didn't think was going to happen. And they're having to now think about that, and so are we. And so I've appreciated the comments and hearing from everybody, and thank you to Councillor Patterson actually for putting your amendment up this afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kawate. Probably just me as the last person before I go back to the mover. I think, Your Worship, you've got your hand up, but you've already spoken to the motion. So I'm just...
Oh, sorry, it just sounded like we were giving feedback on the whole thing, but I'll save my comments for next.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patterson, do you wish to just reserve your right at this stage if I... Thank you. Councillors, this is a really difficult decision. At the last meeting I reserved by abstaining the right to come back to this meeting and make a decision once we had the information in front of us, as well as the Head Start proposal, and also seeing what the other mayors or other councils were going to do around the region. We now know what the other councils have proposed, given that we're the last council to vote on this. So it's not a vote against reform. It's a vote against a rush decision, and it's a vote against not forcing someone to do something that we have said ourselves that we do not want to force another council to do something without their approval. And that, to me, also doesn't sit well with me. We haven't taken our community along with that. I don't know whether the rest of our community, whether it be just anyone in the community, would feel comfortable with that. And I know councillors have said we're trying to make the best decision for Rotorua. I think that potentially backstop still gives us the opportunity to negotiate with government. We've heard that the legislation around how backstop would work has not been finalised, nor has the legislation around how the Head Start would work either. So I think there is ample opportunity for us to negotiate further with government if we say we are taking the community along with us, we've done our due diligence, we've looked at how these transitional arrangements will work, and we haven't talked about that level of detail. If we're going to force Western Bay into partnering with us, I agree that you need to have good relationships. I don't know how, in practical terms, that works without their consent. I think that if we have the opportunity with more time to explore how we might build a trustful relationship with them, partnerships with other councils, explore the opportunities with potentially the councils that were named up there. I know there is some, probably Councillor Lee is suggesting that there's some uncertainty around the addition to the resolution about a Rotorua Unitary Authority. I think that's what we really were hoping for, but it leaves the door open to an and/or taupo and/or a boundary adjustment. I think that also reflects what the decision was that Council voted for on the 29th of July. I would hate to see this fall over just on the basis of that part of the resolution. I just would like that for us to respect democracy. Other councils have made their decision. They also need to respect the decision that we make today. And so, as much as anything, this is a conscience vote on everyone's part, and I realise that this is a really difficult decision, but I think that we've got two options here. Both potentially lead us to a talking point with the government. There's no certainty that going through Head Start will even mean that this is an eligible proposal or that the government will accept it, nor does it mean with backstop. So I think my situation here is that we should hedge our bets. We should just go with backstop. Let's take the opportunity to ensure that we take the community and our partner councils along with us. So I would support the recommendation. So Councillor Patterson, you have the right
Yes,
of reply.
thank you, Madam Chair. Just in closing,
Madam Chair?
Sorry,
when I spoke before, I was really speaking to the amendment. So if we're going to turn this into a...
there was no amendment. This is the proposal that's currently on the table, so we're debating this at this stage.
Right, so my comments were only intended to cover Councillor Patterson's
I'm sorry,
amendment.
Councillor Lee, I think you've spoken to the to this. So I think we're now back to Councillor Patterson as the mover to have the and then we'll put this to the vote. Depending on what happens, then you had signalled a potential amendment, but I think we need to finish this process as part of this debate.
Point of clarification too, if I may. For this to pass, do we need 75% of us to vote on this? Because at our last council meeting, we voted to submit a head proposal. The 2 to 8 is essentially amendment of our submission of a Head Start proposal. This is specifically going against our resolution at our last meeting.
So I'll get the CE to answer that, but I think it was also something that Mr Fallows referred to in the discussion when I asked the question, so I'll ask the CE to...
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, our view, staff view, is that this is a simple majority decision. It's not a direct revocation of a previous decision, and as outlined earlier, I'm happy for Mr Fallows to add to this, is that we've presented you with the new decision based on new circumstances in the report, and on that basis, it's a simple majority. Mr Fallows, anything to add?
Yeah, so it'll be consistent with my previous piece of advice, and in that previous resolution was noted that we would come back with our proposal for a final sign-off. So essentially this is the meeting for that final sign-off, so that I guess that motion indicated that at this point Council could make a decision whether to submit a proposal or not. So essentially 2 to 8 is the decision to submit the proposal, and 9 and 10 were the amended 9 and 10 are the decision to not submit a proposal effectively. So that was something, in my view, that councillors contemplated by requesting this final sign-off today.
Thank you for that clarification. So, Your Worship, did you have a question of clarification? Otherwise, I'll just finish the debate.
I just want to say I disagree with that assessment. I just want to note that I disagree with that. I think it would be a 75% because we have already voted to participate in Head Start, and the purpose of this meeting, despite what other councillors have made, the purpose of this meeting was actually to finalise the proposal.
Okay.
And so, yes, we've been inclined to put on Western Bay, but that's just my views. I disagree. I think that would be a reversal of our already decision to participate in Head Start.
Thank you, Worship. I'm going back to Councillor Patterson then. As the mover, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. So basically, I guess you could say this was already approved on the 29th of July, so there's a debate either way, whichever way you look at it. I added in the motion only with the approval of the affected communities. Now, the purpose of that is because the consultation that was undertaken on this in the last 90 days would not even come close to matching our significance and engagement policy, and I doubt it would meet the same criteria for any of our councils because we simply haven't had the time to do it. So what I mean with that is that any boundary adjustments, and that's only maybe, would be at their discretion, the decisions of the communities involved. That's why I included that, because we haven't had that opportunity and they haven't had that opportunity to participate in this. And second, the other point I would like to remind us all is, as mentioned by Sam, is that the iwi chairs stated quite clearly that they did not want to force others into any future unitary. That was their position. So with the change of the Western Bay vote, with the moving of Eastern Bay to put their own submission in, the playground has changed, the field has changed. We're in a totally different ballgame. So therefore, I would read into that it goes back to the original submission made by the iwi chairs, which was Mai Makatū ki Tongariro, was their preferred option, because things have changed. So therefore, that reverts back to that. So, and once again, they haven't given us any feedback. So here we are making a decision today without them having more feedback on this option. They are our major partners. So finally, in closing, this is the one chance we get to have a crack at this. One chance to change the future direction of our community. And I think we should grab it with both arms and say, sorry, government, we need more time, and the backstop gives us that time.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. So it's been moved and seconded. I'm now going to put that motion, and I need councillors to raise their hands so I can assess whether the motion is passed or not. So, sorry, Gomati, could you just bring the resolution back, please? Sorry. So we are voting for 9 and 10 there. All those in support of 9 and 10, please raise their hands. So, sorry, 1, 6. Right, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, Rokawa, do you had your hand up? Did you have your hand up originally? Sorry. You had your hand up originally. We were doing a count and we had your hand counted as you were in favour of this motion. Sorry, let's just do that again. Sorry, councillors, all those in favour, could you please raise your hands? That's 5. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 6. So that motion is lost. So then, Councillor Lee, you signalled an amendment.
Yes, Madam Chair, what I signalled was that we would revert to the recommendation as drafted by staff.
So is that
just a quick question, Madam Chair, on that one, because we've technically already voted for. Is that right? Can we just check with staff?
We'll just take a break and I'll just double check that with the governance team.
That'd be safer.
Councillors, the advice I'm getting is that we can't amend a motion that has already been lost. So I think there was, who was it? Sorry. Who was proposing the alternate? Councillor Wang, was it? So Councillor Wang, what's your... You are moving number 2 to 8?
Yeah.
Is that your worship seconding that? So now we're open for debate on going the 2 to 10? No, who worship had seconded it, Councillor Maxwell. So, Councillor Wang, did you wish to speak as the mover?
Yeah, yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kaifong. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just before I start, I want to acknowledge the discussion, the difficult discussions that we're having around the table right now. It's obviously clear that the timing of this, the number of issues that we're trying to flesh out here is a lot, and I want to acknowledge the different views around the table. The reason, also acknowledge that this is not the same decision that we thought that we were making when we made that decision back on the 29th. But the meeting that we had on Wednesday to clarify and to comment on the proposal, I think really helped strengthen this process. And the points that quite a few of us raised have obviously been incorporated into that, and I want to acknowledge the staff for the enormous amount of work that they've put into here with very little time. Just say thank you. So obviously our circumstances have changed a little bit. We've seen the Eastern Bay councils that have progressed with their own proposal, and that decision from the Western Bay Cleaning District Council not to progress with Head Start, but again, like I said in the previous motion moved by Councillor Patterson, that thank you to Mayor Tatzel for providing that context of why they did not participate in Head Start, which was around the timing. And I think that context is really important when we're considering this. So also acknowledge, the incredibly uncomfortable part of the proposal is before us, and obviously it is government, direction, and they've signalled to us, obviously, that the reform is happening. But I respect the democratic decisions made by our different councils, our different territorial authorities. Ultimately, I think our responsibility around this table is to consider what is in the best interests of Rotorua and the communities that we represent. And when I look at the two pathways that are available to us, I believe that proceeding with Head Start is the more responsible pathway. And I think with that, it's not that we are, it's concrete, because it's still an outline proposal. There's still to be the work going into determining the final boundaries, how the representation arrangements will work, how rates and shared services and those delivery models, all the assets and liabilities, how that's all going to work as well. So those will be worked through the detailed design stage, and which is exactly why I think we need to be a part of that discussion and be at the table for that. To me, it's much too risky to be out of that room, out of that, away from that table when all of those discussions are happening. This is us determining our future, and I think to not be doing this is taking that future away from our hands. Again, I acknowledge the fact that quite a few of us have mentioned consistently around the fact that about a third, just over a third of our district is in the Waikato catchment, and about 3,900 residents. And thank you again to the staff for making sure that that's included in the report and the proposal, because I think that discussion really needs to be had. And I hope that as we progress down this stage, that the consultation and the engagement is done properly so that those communities can have their say in determining what their future looks like, which catchment, how their boundary adjustments work. In the detailed design, I think what we really will need to understand is how, what happens with their representation and with their regional functions. And what we will need to do is to properly address how that future or true unitary authority, that central authority, would interact with both the Bay of Plenty and the Waikato systems. And becoming that unitary authority doesn't mean that I think that every function stops at our boundary. We've seen that the rivers, the catchments, the transport infrastructure, all of that, it crosses over our council boundaries. And so we will still need that regional collaboration, and I think that's a comment that was shared quite a few times in our previous discussions. Regional collaboration is vital. Those shared services and those cross-boundary arrangements to deliver those services and to have those better outcomes is vital. Which is why I think having, the recommendations 6 and 7, having, agreeing to work with other councils and Bay of Plenty, in the current Bay of Plenty Regional Council, should this proposal be approved by Cabinet. I also want to say, sorry for taking up a lot of time, but I think this is probably one of the most significant decisions we will ever be making as a council. But neither option, obviously, is risk-free. Head Start has its risk. We've had them identified, but Head Start also gives us as a council an opportunity to shape our future arrangements. Like the Deputy Mayor said, subject to Cabinet approval, to legislation, due diligence and that. But the backstop asks us, that decision instead to accept the risk of an undefined future for us. So between those two choices, I would much rather that we advocate for Rotorua rather than abdicate that opportunity and our voice in saying that. It gives us that opportunity, and to me the backstop just does not give me the same confidence that Rotorua will have that level of influence in determining our future and our identity. So with those reasons, I'm happy to move the recommendations 2 to 8 and open to hearing from other my colleagues around the table around their thoughts around this, but acknowledge that it is an incredibly difficult decision for us to make.
Thank you, Councillor Wing. Your Worship, the Mayor.
Thank you very much. Look, I want to acknowledge that this has been incredibly hard. Many of us have heavy hearts making these decisions. It was never the councils that asked for this, it was never the communities that asked for this, and it was a government that has not been bluffing with all of the other proposals, reforms, changes that they've made. So it is really unfortunate that we're making a decision with one council in our region not supported. But I do, and I've mentioned the sentiment was feeling that there's not enough time. We feel that way, Taupo feels that way. We have reached out, we've done all that we can. I have spent so much time on this, and I'm looking forward to this coming to a conclusion so that we can refocus on the next big decisions of a long-term plan. But I do really want to acknowledge that through this whole process, consistently, councillors have had the best interest of the Rotorua community at heart, And I know this has been a journey that we've all gone on with great uncertainty of what's to come around the corner. But when I've explained this to my community and got feedback from them, not a single person has said that they want backstop. When I explain that Head Start is our opportunity to be masters of our own destiny, and that backstop is the risk of the government's going to decide, and very obviously they are talking regional, and not a single person has nodded their head and said, oh yeah, backstop sounds like a good idea. So while I feel that there is much information that we would have wanted, due diligence, community consultation, that is what we can do through the detailed design, which is why I am supportive of putting in a Head Start so that we can do that. I am also really grateful to our Te Awa Iwi chairs. They've been mentioned a few times. They were very clear to us that they want us to put in their Head Start as well. And what I do want to say is, although this has been insanely challenging, this is actually a great opportunity. Like, I am so excited to acquire the regional council functions so that this council, in whatever form, in a unity of authority, can look after the things that we really love and care about, like our lakes and our environment, but also unlock the opportunities that have been untapped so far, such as geothermal and sustainable energy. So please don't lose sight of we're dealing with the crisis right now, but we want to make sure that please don't lose sight of the opportunity that's to come, and we will be able to get there faster with more certainty of Rotorua's interests being represented if we can go on the Head Start. So please trust me on this one. As I mentioned, I've had many conversations with ministers to assess the risk in the situation, and I do strongly believe that Head Start is the best option and opportunity for Rotorua. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to acknowledge the councillors that remain sitting on the fence and just say to them that the proposal or the motion that's before us is not a direct negative of the previous vote, and you are at liberty to not vote to support this motion if you so please. I acknowledge the government's desire to disestablish regional councils. That's obviously what they want to achieve, but as it's turned out, as we've seen, easier said than done. 3 months ago they said councils should get together and sort themselves out. Well, this is a work that would normally take 2 or 3 years under the Local Government Act, and thank you Andrew, thank you Sam, and thank you all of the staff who have jumped through hoops and done somersaults to present to us options as best as they are able. It's a fluid environment, and amazing that we're presented with new options as early as this morning. And that demonstrates that this isn't a proper process. This isn't good governance. I think Councillor Raukawa Tate made that point very well last time we met on this topic. This is a cluster of difficulties, and it falls upon us to try and straighten it out as best as we can. In short, the process, I think, has been unreasonable. Mayor Tapsell, we started with the principle that proposals can only be finalised with the approval of other named councils, and I think we should take a principled approach. Principles are not what we dispose of when inconvenient. Principles are what we stick to even when it's inconvenient. And the Local Government Act does talk about principles. In particular, as Councillor Barker has referred to, section 14(1)(e), and I'll repeat it, a local authority should actively seek to collaborate and cooperate with other local authorities. This proposal would be in breach of section 14(1)(e). This would be grounds, in my view, for the Western Bay of Plenty Council to judicially review our decision if we went with this option. And it would seem to me that they would be motivated to do so potentially. So, just tidying up one matter that was raised during the question time, when we spoke with the regional councillors about supporting us with a Part 3 amalgamation, we were told by the regional councillors that they would treat any formal request from us on its merits. We haven't actually received any written response from the regional council saying they wouldn't cooperate with us. In any event, this is a fluid situation, so whatever happens after this, there would be an opportunity to consider that option, but we don't even need to formally go through the Part 3 process. What Part 3 does is it sets out how we ought to go about this, and it's got some good advice on how we should consult with the community, and we can do a better job if we give ourselves more time to consider what we should do and where we should go. We're backed into a place where we simply don't have enough time, as Councillor Patterson has said. It's a shoddy process. Sorry, central government, that's what it is. And this is not the way to go about an amalgamation. It is natural for people to be afraid of the unknown, and probably that's the one thing that most people are afraid of. If it's jumping out of a plane or if it's spiders, they're afraid of the unknown is actually what it's about. And the backstop does contain some known unknowns, and it contains a lot of unknown unknowns. But we should have confidence in ourselves and in our colleagues and our staff that we can work through those unknowns, and we can come out with a far better thought out proposal, a far better consulted proposal. And I think that is every reason to reject this Head Start arrangement that is put before us, and especially to those councillors who sit on the fence. Let's do it right, let's do it properly, and let's not be bullied into this sham of a process where we don't get to consult the community properly.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Any further debate on this? Councillor Okawate?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think the process from central government has been thank you. I think the process from central government right from the outset has been flawed, because we heard today that the Head Start process is locally led or council led, and that the backstop is government led. Well, really, to be honest, the Head Start process has been government led right from the start, and it's poor. It really is poor. The process has been, the time frame has been very inflexible. There would have been nothing wrong with asking the government, I believe, or certainly DIA, asking them to give us another 4 weeks so we could put to bed some real concerns that we have. We haven't been able to do that because the time frame hasn't allowed for that. And I think most of our citizens probably would have been more at ease had they had have seen there's a good process, there's room to have some more good debate, particularly in light of what happened with Western Bay, but that hasn't been allowed to happen. We don't know the detail, and we always say the devil is in the detail, and obviously it's very clear that we certainly don't know the detail about the backstop process either. So that's bad government. And we as politicians, excuse me, are being asked to support at local level bad government. And I think that's what gets our country into difficulty all the time. We tend to think short term and think things will sort themselves out over a period of time. And invariably it doesn't, and something at the end of the day will suffer. I looked at, and excuse me, what was the objective of the reform? And the objective of the reform was to reduce, obviously, the number of regional councils. That was certainly one of them, and also to perhaps get other councils to merge where they can work together, provide value for money, I guess, and sustainable services, and also to ensure that the ratepayers' money is probably better spent. And I looked at that and I thought, will all of this actually achieve that? Will all of this up here will achieve that? And I don't know whether that's actually going to be the case at all. But we've got a process now that's been put in place, and we're asking our community, and all around the country, we're asking communities to trust the process and also to trust government. And there's a lot of distrust of central government in the country, and I don't want that to be transferred onto local government, because we're put there, we're put there by the citizens who believe that we have their best interests at heart. And when we go and support poor process that has been put to us by government, what does that say about us? And are we listening to our community? So I'm just saying that I just feel if we're not happy with the government process, we should say to the government, no, this needs you to think a bit more about what the implications would be, to at least have some more detail. We're less than 100 days out from an election, a general election, and when the government changes, what happens then? So all of these things come back to make us more work for us, and certainly our community, I think, more uneasy. So yes, it is a day where decisions have to be made, but they should be made with the best information possible. And we have had, I might add, with the work that's gone on from our CEO, from the mayor and other mayors and our staff. There's been such a lot of work. And I do believe that that's probably been at the expense of some other work that could have been done. And so we're picking all of that up, and we should be doing business as usual. So all of that causes me to be really concerned, not only for the local government that we might end up with throughout the Bay of Plenty, but certainly it causes me to be concerned as to probably how dismissive central government can be at local elected politicians as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kawate. I've got Councillor Sanford, followed by Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, obviously this process has a whole range of shortcomings, and I think we've spoken at length about that, as have other councils around the country. But I just wanted to emphasise one thing on that. I don't think voting against going into Head Start fixes those shortcomings in any way. And I don't think putting our trust in backstop, when we've identified so many shortcomings in Head Start, proves that backstop is going to be in any way a better process when it's already been articulated that backstop is the government deciding what we as a region are going to look like. If we think forward a little bit, Eastern Bay of Plenty has already submitted. The government is likely to look at the three councils that remain in the Bay of Plenty and say, well, in backstop, why don't the three of you join? That is a very live possibility if we don't go forward with Head Start, and it's a risk that I think is too great to take for our community. I think we should be looking after our vision of Rotorua as a unitary authority, which is best protected through Head Start. And I think that also fits well with the overall proposal. Like we've spoken a number of times in this meeting about Section 14 of the Local Government Act. 5 of the 6 councils in the region are voting in line with what we outlined as an Eastern, Western and Central unitary authorities. So yes, there is one that has voted against that, and I do acknowledge that, and it's never pleasant to be casting a vote to force someone into a decision that you don't want to, but we do have 5 other councils that have voted in line with that, and our particular proposal would be supporting Tauranga, to join into a Western Bay of Plenty Unitary Council and us to become our own unitary council. So I still think that us becoming our own unitary authority is in the best interests and it's substantially the same as our decision that we've already made.
Okay, Councillor Brown, followed by Councillor Timera Benfell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't support a flawed process any longer. It's been identified that we will be short $9 million plus in this through the breakup of a regional council, and we're putting that at risk, and I can't support it any longer. I can't support supporting these motions as they are on the table. I'm sorry.
Councillor Brown, Councillor Timera Benfell.
Kia ora, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, I just wanted to signal my support for Councillor Sanford and his comments on the Head Start, and also for Councillor Lokaltate's comments pertaining to the government. We've been, from my perspective, we've been elected here to make the hard decisions for our community, and it's not always easy and it's not always pretty. And unfortunately, the nature of this decision has our, from what I can hear from my colleagues, it's got our heads and our hearts at war with each other about what's working logistically, financially, transitionally, or morally and respectfully with other councils, which has created some serious tension across the region. In this instance, it's always been my practice to follow my puku or gut instinct. And that instinct is telling me that we cannot leave our future in the hands of this government. We need to operate with what we do know and not in the hope of what we don't know. And quite frankly, I don't trust this government as far as I can throw them. So I agree in the sentiments from Councillor Sanford that I don't think backstop is going to be any better than Head Start. Quite frankly, I think it's probably going to be worse. And so that's why I'm backing the proposal to be the authors of our own story and to be able to at least put something forward for our people and for our community here in Rotorua. And that's, from my position, having heard all the arguments and comments today, I think will leave Rotorua in the best position possible. And it's not to say that I disagree with the comments around the table. Actually, I agree with many of the sentiments and comments around the table that we are operating in a complete environment of unknowns, and it is unsettling, but I don't think that's going to change in the near future. And so at this point in time, I'm making a decision based on what I know, what I understand from this, from the information that we have available from both the Crown and from our officials as well. So I will be voting in support of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Timera Benfell. I'm going to go Councillor Barker, followed by Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to reiterate that we have been elected to make the hard decisions. I agree with that. And there's been multiple occasions where we've done that with far more information than we have today. It's actually abysmal that today we're actually faced with a totally different decision than we were at the beginning, and I think that's totally unacceptable, and I don't think that's enough information, and we're relying on, as good as our CE is, and the CEs with other councils, we're relying on them to negotiate how this proposal will look, and it will go away without us having any further input, so that makes me very uncomfortable. I would like to see that we've done our absolute best to understand a situation we're getting ourselves into with any Head Start proposal that we would make, and that would make the decision for the future of our people and our environment with the best information possible. And in my opinion, that we clearly do not have enough. I'm not against amalgamation or restructuring, and if it's in the best interests of our district, which it possibly could be, I would just like to have more time to be more deliberate and take a more evidence-based approach to this significant decision that we've been asked to make by the government. I don't think we should be just making it up as we go along in a process which is called Head Start that has no exit ramp. Once we're on it, we're in it, and we're doing it with unwilling partners who have clearly voiced their opposition to be amalgamated. This will put a strain on any future relationships and conversations that we have with those partners, and will make it particularly difficult to negotiate our way forward in this proposal that's in front of us today. So, Madam Chair, I would just say that I cannot support what's in front of us. We haven't taken the time to establish a common understanding of what is important to Tauranga, to Western Bay, and put good ground rules in place when we're forcing the hand of another council. And I think that the detailed design phase will be fraught and potentially unproductive even, because relationships are key, as has been noted before. So I'm sorry, I can't support this.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so that I got it right, I'm voting in support of the Head Start. At the moment, we're discussing the amendment, which is...
We're discussing 2 to 8.
2 to 8.
Which is in your papers.
We've supported 2 to 8 earlier. We're still...
So we are discussing that now. We're in debate around 2 to 8. It's been moved and seconded, so we're in debate now.
That's what I'm in support of. Voting in support of Head Start. Yeah, and I'm not sitting on the fence. I'm actually in the waka, going forward, rowing. I want us to have a look at the logo on, that's the motto that has been ours for a long, long time. And it says, Tātou, Tātou, we together. So let's row together and be at the table, in the tent, whatever we want to call it, and do what's best for us. Just a little small bit of history growing up in not only in Oahu, but also I grew up for some years in Te Puke, out there in the Western Bay of Plenty. Went to school there, Te Matai School. My mother was from there. We always aligned ourselves to here, and that was because of the mai make tū ki Tongariro. And we strongly aligned ourselves, and they still do. So the other one is I also, in my kōrero, want to actually also acknowledge the mahi, the hard mahi behind the scenes from our Mayor Tania, and also our CEO Andrew and the staff. It hasn't been easy. It looked easy a couple of days ago when we had our workshop, when we were sort of, things were aligning. Then at the 11th hour, things changed a little bit, but so I've been consistent. I just want to acknowledge the work and the mahi that they've been doing. It's not easy trying to, I won't call it, try and get favour or whatever, but meeting their mayoral colleagues and their CEO colleagues and without lobbying. Just, it's just trying to suss out where people are. But in the end, it comes back to the table. And that's what we're doing in that now. But to my own colleagues here, what I'm pleased about is I think we've shown the respect to this major decision of significance that we've had to deal with. So yes, I'll be in support of the Head Start 2 to 8.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when I first saw the initial proposal about the Central, Eastern and Western Bay, I thought, great, that matches my old job at Bay Rugby. That's the way we used to run our community. And I thought, that's an excellent concept. Well, that's no longer the case. Seems like they've decided another path. So then you get to Councillor Okawa-Tate's points, which I wholeheartedly agree, and Councillor Brown. I mean, any well-thought-out plan takes about 5 years to put together, then it's presented as one plan. We first got local water done well, and I thought, ooh, I'm not liking the way this fiber's heading. And then what pops up? Head Start. And then the regional spatial plan just the other day. It's all these little things that seem to be popping up instead of being presented as a fully thought out plan with an end goal that will produce benefits. It's like it's been done on the fly. Frankly, I agree, it's not good governance. Now, and then when we talk about our community feedback, we've got into a position where they told us, with the limited consultation that we had, that their preferences were for a Taupo/South Waikato alignment. And putting it carefully, there wasn't a strong support for an alignment with Tauranga. And that's putting it carefully. There was no real consultation with our community, though. Really, hand on heart, we're going to be going into our upcoming representation review consultation. That's going to start maybe in September, October, and finish in March. That's a hell of a lot longer than this, and this is the biggest decision we're about to make. It's just not acceptable. And too many unknowns for potential problems down the track, especially with our lakes. I'm really concerned, as Councillor Brown alluded to, that we could be left holding the baby for all of our lakes alone. Our ratepayers can't afford that. One unitary authority in the middle can't levy other unitary authorities around us. We just can't do that. So somebody's going to have to set up an overall body, which is basically what the regional council does. So what are we going to get out of this? As even Mayor Tanya has asked the question, what are we aiming to fix with this process? What are we aiming to fix? It irks me that we've got to this point. So sadly, I think it's a bad decision either way. So I'll still be supporting the no vote on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Before I go back to Councillor Wing as the mover, you can see the passion and the difficulty it is making this decision today. What doesn't sit right with me, as I mentioned before, is we stand on our principles. We should die by them as well. I want to remind councillors that when you made the decision, I abstained at that vote, but the rest of you voted, and at the time, I think Councillor Barker asked the question, will we force another council to take part in Head Start? And the answer was 100% no. And as a result of that, you councillors voted to include that in the recommendation on the 29th of July, that you would not do anything without the consent or approval of other named councils. You are now doing exactly that, and so I do not think that that is principled, and I ask my fellow councils to reconsider that. We're not respecting another council's decision. We say that we want to be good governors and provide good democratic decisions. So what right do we have to override the decision of another council? I go back to Councillor Okawa-Tate's comments around you need to have trust. You can't start out a relationship with mistrust. I don't know how on earth we are supposed to repair that relationship to be able to work through the transitional arrangements. Councillor Brown is right, it's a $9 million hole, and it's not just a $9 million hole, it's a $9 million hole per year. We haven't had the detail or the information to decide how we work through that. Councillor Maxwell, you just said, we together. How is that we together when we're forcing someone to do something that they do not want to do? That is certainly not we together. I also have a problem with the recommendations that are currently on the table. We are asking the council to approve the mayor signing a letter of endorsement from the Bay of Plenty mayors. I assume now that since the Eastern Bay mayors are out because they've already submitted their proposal, that they will not support a proposal signed by Tauranga and Rotorua. And we also say in recommendation 6 that the council agree to work with other willing councils. Well, they're not willing if they haven't agreed to be part of this process. So I have a real difficulty supporting the recommendations as they are on the table. I think the devil's in the detail. I'd rather take the worst of the two evils, which is to try and negotiate with more time The backstop approach. The government has also said that they will take on board the lessons that are going to be learned from those councils that enter through the Head Start proposal. They can go first, let them be the test case dummies, let us create and craft our own destiny, given the right time, having the right information to make the proper decision. So I can't support this recommendation. So back to you, Councillor Wang, as the mover for the final response, if you so wish. Otherwise, I'll put the motion to the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that I acknowledge all the comments and the issues that all councillors have raised, but my thoughts around that is that those issues won't just disappear if we go backstop. Those issues will still be there. The whole from the regional council funding is still going to be there if we go backstop. The other representation and just other issues that have been raised, they're still all going to be there. I'm not 100% happy with this decision either, but for me it's about what is out of the two decisions that we can make today, which one is the one that has the least risk and to keep us at the table and has out of the two the best outcome that we can work towards. And this submitting a Head Start proposal like this is that decision. Thank you for everyone's comments. It has obviously been a very difficult process. Thank you to Mayor Tapsell for her work and the last, especially over those last few months, travelling around the Bay, meeting with all the other mayors and councils and doing the brunt of that engagement with them. I hope that she'll, after this process, enjoy her evenings again. But thank you to staff and all the work that's been done. I think we've had enough discussion around this, so I'm happy to move that this goes to a vote.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Wang. So it's been moved and seconded. Debate is finished. So all those in favour of number 2 to 8, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. The motion is lost. We are now back to the original nothing now.
There's nothing left to vote on now, so my understanding would be that we will now just revert to the previous council decision. Would that be correct?
Could we just take a break?
Vote against not to continue to submit a Head Start.
Can we just, I'll just take a short break. I just need to just get some advice from governance as to what the proposal is now that both motions have been lost.
Sorry, did we say we were taking how long's the break?
Right, I'm just taking just a short break just to get some governance advice. We're not actually formally on a break. I'm just getting some advice as chair, so just give me a couple of minutes. Thank you, councillors. If you want to take a 5-minute break, I'm happy to do that as well. I'm getting some nods, so I think people just need a bathroom break. So we'll just take a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 4:10. Thank you.
While we're doing that, sorry, because we
resume the meeting. I'm just waiting for Councillor Sanford. I think he's just... Oh, sorry, he's coming down the hallway. So councillors, we just took a break so I could just get some governance advice. So what we have now had is both motions both ways to either submit a head start or to go backstop. Both of those motions have been lost. So now we're in a position where I just need to go to Sam and or Andrew just for your advice as to where we go from here in terms of the standing orders, given that both motions, both ways, have been lost. So, Sam?
Yeah, thank you for that. So this is a situation under 23.9 of the standing order, so wherein motions lost. So both of those motions were lost. So there is the ability for a new motion to be put forward. The difficulty here will be that I can't imagine there will be a motion that anybody will put forward that is different from either of those motions that have failed. And then so essentially it means that it would be a situation like if we put a motion forward, a paper forward that didn't have an alternative, that everything in the paper wasn't carried forward. And so to the point of going back to the previous decisions that we made, those decisions directed staff specifically to bring the paper to this meeting for a decision, and so that would ultimately be where we stood, and then these ones, both options, have lost in this case. So then that paper, I guess, would ultimately be, have been voted down as it has been.
Okay, thank you, Sam. So, Andrew, did you want to make any further comments?
The only thing to say is the 29th of July resolutions have been, I guess, in some part fulfilled. They instructed staff to prepare a Head Start proposal and instructed staff to bring it to Council for approval. We have done that. This Council voted to receive the report, which included the draft proposal. However, Council has not approved that proposal to proceed, and so I am not authorised to submit a Head Start proposal based on Council's decisions.
Sorry, councillors, that brings today's meeting to a close. There's nothing further that can be done in terms of the standing orders and motions, so we need to respect the decision that we have made today as a council on both of those recommendations, and it just shows you how hard today has been. I wondered, as your worship, do you wish to make some closing remarks before I close the meeting?
So as I've noted before, because it's lost, so thank you for re-explaining that it goes back to the previous council decision. The previous council decision was to submit a Head Start proposal, so yes, I agree that this proposal that's currently before us, largely it was voted down because of Western Bay of plenty, but what I also suggest is, as I've mentioned, the Minister has in my discussion with him, being open to an extension of up to 1 month. So what I would propose is that we reconvene at the next time possible, whether that's next week. In the meantime, I will give the Minister an update on what's happened and just request for that to occur for some additional time. So regardless, we will need to come back and close off that last council decision of putting in a Head Start proposal. It's just what that proposal looks like. So this could actually give us more time to relieve the concerns that we had before.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Okay, thank you. I don't think I can take this matter any further. Councillor Temera Benfield, I think we've probably debated this enough. The Mayor has suggested a way forward. I think that we probably can't take the matter any further today, so unless you are seeking some clarification.
Yes, I just had a question on that next step, Madam Chair. Something that Sarah said regarding the if we're seeking an extension, perhaps it would be wise to somehow talk with our eastern councils to see if they would be willing to rescind their application to resubmit alongside Rotorua. In the instance that they would amalgamate and they could endorse our application as an alternative, seeing that in this instance both motions have lost, so it sort of left us in no man's land. So the rescinding of that application would enable us to follow a similar suit without having to have a partner that was unconsensually part of a process of partnership, if that's an alternative.
Perhaps, I think the CE is indicating you could take that as an action point, and perhaps that's something maybe Miatania could be investigating as well in the interim period.
And sorry, Madam Chair, we were also waiting, all of us online could not see who voted, so we're waiting for governance to update on what the vote was for and against.
I can give you the, against. So those that voted against, Councillor Barker, Councillor Brown, Councillor Kaifong, Councillor Lee, Councillor Patterson and Councillor Okawa-Tate. So clear 6-5. So thank you, councillors. That will bring this meeting to a close today. I'll ask Councillor Barker if she could close the meeting with a karakia, and can I thank everyone for the passion and their patience, and it's been a difficult day for everyone, so I hope that you actually have an enjoyable weekend.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia whakeire te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara. Kia turiki whakataha ai, kia turiki whakataha ai. Omie, huie, tae ki e.
Thank you, councillors. I declare the meeting closed at 4:20.